5 top tips that I have from a professional speech and language therapist on how to raise bilingual children. So for many of you, this will come really naturally. You might have grown up in an environment where many people speak different languages anyway, and there doesn't seem to be any troubles like that. But for a lot of people across the world, a lot of expats, it can be really quite unnerving to move to a new country and have your kid learn a new language. You might be worrying about whether they'll fit in, whether they'll be doing okay at nursery or at school. You might be concerned for their own language development, like I was. So before I start telling you these excellent 5 top tips that I have for raising bilingual children, I'll straight away do the disclaimer that I'm not the expert here. I am just a mom who is raising a child speaking English and French at the same time. The expert whose tips I'm going to share with you are actually from my good friend Marion Walrewens, who is a speech and language therapist. She trained at UCL in London and then worked in France before moving to French-speaking Switzerland, where she's currently working and writing her Masters Thesis on the lexical development of bilingual children speaking English and French, specifically between the ages of 17 to 35 months at the University of Neuchatel. So she is fantastic. She really knows her stuff, and I wish I asked her advice sooner. I had none of this advice before. I just plunged in the deep end trying to teach my baby girl English and French. I didn't really know what I was doing. And when I finally had a sit down with Marion and discuss these issues, I realized that I was doing a few things not completely wrong. I wouldn't say it was completely wrong, but they probably could have been better. So I would like to share all these tips with you. These are all her professional tips, but I want to also give you a view on the practical realities of raising a child bilingually. So without further ado, let's dive straight into her first tip. Okay, number 1, when your child is still developing his language, it is very important not to mix the languages. So for example, I wouldn't say, could you pass me la voiture rouge, please? That's something that a bilingual child might understand completely, but she says absolutely try not to do that from the very beginning, which is terrible because that's something that I have done from the beginning. It's something I do naturally whenever I'm around people who do speak 2 languages. We constantly mix both all the time. It's a bad habit, I suppose, but it's what a lot of people do these days. It's what kids do at school. I've kind of grown up with that, and I'm doing it with her now. She says, try not to do that anymore. Even if you've started already, that's okay. Try and move on from that and have, say, one person speak a specific language to the child at all times. So that child knows what to expect and which language to address each adult in. So mummy might speak French all the time, or whatever your mother tongue is, and daddy will speak his own language, or the language of the country in which you're in. So in our case, my husband speaks English to her all the time. Before, he was trying to speak to her a bit in French as well. He is not completely fluent in French, but he's got conversational French. And she advised me that it's probably best he just sticks to English. It's the language he knows and masters, and it's going to come across much better to her. So one parent, one language at all times. Or you could try to have very specific times for specific languages. For example, around the dinner table, whenever you're eating, everything will be your mother tongue language. But then when you're outside playing with other children locally, you might want to speak in English and speak in a common language then. But that child knows that once we're indoors, we're at home and we're eating, it's going to be that mother tongue, and he or she will only speak to you that way. Hopefully, that is the theory behind it. Practically, I find that quite difficult to follow because I'll always want to speak to her in French, and then these English words still kind of pop up. Then when I'm outside with other mums, other local mums who all speak English, I kind of feel bad speaking to her in French for several reasons. I feel it's a bit alienating, maybe for the other mums to. I don't mind myself, but I know people have told me that it's really odd I don't really understand what you're saying, and then you're switching between the 2 languages between your child and them, and I felt like it was alienating me maybe putting me aside from the other mums, and maybe it was alienating her from her peers as well, from the other little toddlers. And I would get little stares from toddlers looking at me saying, why, what are you saying? What language are you speaking? I don't understand what you're saying. And yeah, so that can be a little bit awkward at times, but she reassured me to stay true to the rules and just carry on ahead. Doesn't matter what other people think, you can just explain to them nicely. I'm trying to teach them 2 languages, and this is what I've been advised to do. And I did tell my NCT group that I had those odd feelings about it, and all of them reassured me it's fine. They would rather that I'll do what's best for my child. And it's interesting because then their children actually get exposed to a second language as well, so they also benefited from it. Marion's saying that these rules are really important so that the child knows what to expect and doesn't get mixed up. The second tip she gave is to speak from the language of your heart. That's the way she's put it. It doesn't matter if you speak the language of the country you live in. You need to speak a language that you love and that you master so that you're coming across clearly to the child. You're not teaching them mistakes either. She said this is a really important point actually, because sometimes parents are scared that their child won't learn the language of the new country in which they live. And so what they try and do, and this is the case for ML, you might have found this, ML, my friend who moved from France over to England, and she was worried about her children not picking up English fast enough, not being able to cope at school. She herself didn't speak English, and trying maybe to speak English to your children is unnecessary. They're going to get enough of that from school, and they will no doubt surpass your level of English before you feel confident in that. So it's much better that you just speak to them in their mother tongue, so they have a very solid language base of your language. Yeah, just basically she was saying, just reading over through my notes, she's just saying, just don't do this. The child needs to have a solid language base. It's far better that your child masters his mother tongue, even if it's a minority language in the country in which you live, rather than he poorly learns the local lingual and never really masters it. It's better that he has yours. And also a side note was to not teach them any extra languages just because you believe it will be an advantage to them. So if you think, it'd be really good if they learn Mandarin, it might help them in business school later on in life, or I might teach them French because it's a lovely romantic language and I wish that I spoke it. Try not to do that, because that just leads to further confusion. They need to just have a good grounding in 1 or 2 languages to start off with, and there's loads of time for them to learn that at school. What I would add to that is, in my experience, in France, people teach grammar a lot, and I'm sure in lots of other countries as well, which is really learning the structure of a language. That's like learning the blueprint to then go on and learn other languages with a lot more ease. So you can actually talk about the breakdown, the building blocks of each language. And if you understand the terminology there, when you're learning a new language, you can use that terminology and it helps your learning and it makes it much, much easier, which is why, unfortunately, I think a lot of English people find it difficult to learn other languages. They have no reference point. We don't learn a lot of grammar at school. It's a real downfall. And that really prevents us from learning other languages easily. So if you're going to teach them anything, don't try and teach them just another language directly. Teach them grammar. I think that will be much easier for them to learn other languages later. So this is Marion's third point. Marion's third point is tell the teachers that your child is raised in a bilingual environment. At the early stages of language development, your child's lexicon, so their word bank, all their vocabulary, is divided between the 2 languages. Some words are going to be shared between these 2 languages, others will only exist in 1 language, and that's absolutely fine. This will evolve with time. Now, the thing is that teachers might fear, and this is like nursery teachers as well, really, really young ones, they might feel that their language has some delay, and you might hear that horrible word on their report cards or in your one-to-one meetings with them every term, and they might say they're really behind in their language development. But this is completely relative to local children who only have 1 language to deal with, and most of the time a lot of mums get really anxious about this. I know that I was a bit anxious about this when I was told this at nursery. At her 2-year review, I was told that Bibi is a little bit behind in her language and not really at the same stage. She doesn't talk as much. She's not necessarily responding the same way. And it's unnerving. But what you have to do is just sit down, remind yourself that you know your child. You know if there's real delay there, or if you know it's just a language thing. If your child is responding to you perfectly in your language and they're not necessarily speaking back, but for example, you ask them to pick up a specific toy on the floor in your language and they do so, then you know that there's definitely comprehension there and they're carrying out that task. They might not get that at nursery. They don't know how they call that specific toy. They might have their own words. And so it looks like delay, but all this is relative. And every child that I've encountered in my own childhood, my own upbringing, from what I've seen in the international circles that I've lived in, is that every child starts speaking later than children locally. And this might be, months later, and it might really look like delay. But what's going on is that they're just processing all these extra words in their head. It takes them a little bit longer, and when the words finally do come out, they come out boom, 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 one after the other. They're stringing words together really quickly. So instead of this normal kind of curve where they're learning words and adding them one and one at a time, it's more like nothing and then boom, that's it, massive raise, boom, massive sentences, complex phrases. And all of that happens all of a sudden. So it's a real relief for international parents when their children actually start speaking, but they start speaking very quickly. And when generally it's not at the 2-year stage, it's a bit afterwards, you see that they are exactly at the same stage. They have exactly the same level of comprehension, and there's no more worries. But those early months are worrying for people, and not enough nursery staff or teachers are necessarily aware of this. So if this happens to you, don't freak out straight away. Don't go and sign them up for speech and language therapy. There's no need. First of all, make sure that you're happy with their comprehension at home and reassure them that it's just because they're dealing with 2 languages. Let's see. Then when the language, this is the 4th tip, when the language actually starts to come out, don't be scared if your child sometimes switches or mixes between languages. That's what Marion calls code mixing or code switching in the literature. It's completely normal and it's not a sign of confusion at all. Think about all the adults that use this socially within international circles, or even in professional meetings these days. There's a lot of especially English words being used in different languages. They get all mixed in. And when you get a crowd that all speak 2-3 languages, there's definitely going to be, mixing up there. And as long as you get understood at the end of the day, it's fine. It's not a sign that they're going to be doing this forever either. It's better if they learn to not do this in a professional setting, especially eventually. But there's lots of time for that. In these early stages, it's just about getting any word out, any comprehension, side of comprehension out. This is also going to lower that frustration level because they're going to be able to communicate better with you, tell you what they want. This then leads to less tantrums, better sense of self-worth, all these things. So number 5, and this is the 5th and last tip that Marion's given me. It's just to say that bilingualism can have massive benefits. Obviously, I think that's quite obvious, but it's the way she puts it that's interesting. She says benefits in literacy, mental flexibility, and social skills. All these things are great. But to gain all this correctly, teaching them 2 languages has to be done right. And by that, she means it's not just the language, it's the entire culture that comes with the language. All this needs to be mise en avant, put forward equally. So it's essential to understand that bilingual children aren't just the sum of two monolingual children. It's much more than that. It's two cultures, two languages, and if one of them is discredited, then it can actually lead to a lot of psychosocial issues and developmental problems for the child, apparently. So, for example, she used the example that in case of migrant parents who chose not to speak Syrian to their children so that they could learn English better, all those reasons that I gave at birth, that they were worried that they wouldn't fit in, and they just wanted to kind of abandon all of that and everybody learn English. And this can lead to the child feeling ashamed of their past, ashamed of their culture and their heritage, which is a real shame, and it's just wrong. It shouldn't be done. And as Marion said, it can lead to other developmental issues. So whatever you do, do it with pride. So it's a good thing. And if it's not an issue, you can always, she suggested to share this culture with the other children and teachers and parents at the school or the nursery setting. If you're feeling that's going to help your child feel like they fit in better. So you can bring in national dishes or pictures from your home, little videos you can make from home to show them what a wonderful other world that your child has come from, and that you want to share this experience with them, as opposed to just being just different, which can be scary, unfortunately, for some people. Then I haven't encountered that yet. I think, yeah, I'm lucky. France, England, it's not a massive difference. But when I was growing up, it was really difficult. When I moved to France, I went to a completely French primary school, and it was really daunting. I can't say that I was bullied at all. Most people just accepted this with open arms and curiosity. But there were the odd kids pointing, making fun of us, probably. Thankfully, I couldn't actually understand any of it, so it just kind of washed over. It depends on your child's natural kind of character as well, whether they're going to be sensitive to this or not. But the main thing, whether they are or not, is that you're standing strong behind them and saying that this is a great thing that you're learning two languages. So my own personal last tip would be to stick with it. I find it is difficult. It's tiring. It's a bit confusing for yourself at times when you're switching between languages, especially when you've never had to babble or baby talk in a different language. Or that's really kind of weird. So it was like learning a whole new language over again. And one thing that I have noticed is when it was just me, a stay-at-home mum with Bibi, all her first words were coming out in French, and I was absolutely delighted. I thought, oh great, all my efforts are really paying off. Then she trotted off to nursery, which is a completely English environment, and bless them, even though they tried to add in the odd French word and they had little they really tried hard to incorporate all this. They were fantastic. But nevertheless, she came back every day with more and more English words. And to the point that now she basically speaks like probably 90% of her words come out in English, and it's more just dotted with the odd French word. But the thing is, she completely understands everything that I say in French. So I know that the understanding's there. I know that the speech part her French language will have to work on, but she can repeat things in French perfectly. So it's just sticking with it. Don't let that deter you. Don't let that fool you into thinking she's not learning the language that you're speaking to her. All that effort that you're putting in is completely worthwhile. But the other difficulty that I think I will encounter is that eventually she's not going to want to speak to me in French because none of her peers do. I've seen this with friends with older children. And they don't want to be different. Kids don't want to be different. They want to be like all the cool kids, like all the other kids. They want to be normal and speak what's spoken to them at school, what they hear on telly, etc., etc. And yeah, I've had friends who really struggle with that. And in the end, they back down and they start speaking English because it's easier. It's the easier option, and it feels more natural as opposed to speaking to them in French and then getting back a different language. Hello, Anna. Hello, Nicola. I just saw you join. So yeah, that's it basically. I think that's the next hurdle that I'm about to encounter, and I'll tell you all about it when I cross that bridge. If you're watching this on Facebook Live, you're watching this on the replay, then please share it with any of your friends who are struggling to teach their children two languages, whether, no matter what languages these are, all the same 5 tips that Marion told us apply. And it's just sticking with it, really. So there you go. I'll see you on my next live stream very soon. You can watch the replay of this on my YouTube channel, and I'll try and cut out all the little bits. If you have any questions, then just email me, or you can leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Big kisses to anyone who subscribes to my channel, and thanks for sharing the love. See you soon.